Hello, everybody. Welcome to CoinFund Q&A. Today we're talking with Kalin from Render Token. Render Token is a project by an existing company called Otoy, where Kalin works. Kalin, welcome. Thank you for joining. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the background of this project and what you guys are doing in the blockchain space?
Sure, absolutely, and thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. Render Token is set to be a distributed and decentralized peer-to-peer marketplace for GPUs. We're looking to tap into the vast array of GPUs that are out there, and we're looking to do so on the blockchain because it provides us a single source of truth, chain of ownership for basically any digital asset that's created. And once we have that, you have a marketplace that you can then use to stream digital assets, use digital assets, and mobile and desktop creations, anything you want. So that's kind of what we're going for, and we're really excited to bring this to everybody.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about Otoy and kind of how long have you guys been in the market doing this kind of rendering, and what has that experience been like?
Sure, yeah. So Otoy's been around for almost 11 years now. We're 10 years strong. Our CEO, Jules Erbach, is a brilliant guy. He basically pioneered GPU rendering. In the past, everything was rendered on CPUs, and something would take 6 hours of frame, like Ratatouille, for example. With GPU rendering, we've taken a 40-hour process, and we've actually made it into a 4-minute process with still the same graphical capabilities. Our rendering engine, Octane, is the first physically correct GPU renderer out there on the market. And, we just want to take this to the next level. Getting GPUs right now on the cloud, AWS, Google, Microsoft sometimes, and Alibaba, for example, is a cumbersome process. And we just can't have as many instances as we need to really be efficient and tackle the demand that's out there for these render jobs. Then comes, Apple and Google with their AR Kit and AR Core. And what happens is there's going to be a boom in AR and VR and mixed reality technologies, and there's just not enough power to really make it work. So we are building our distributed network, and it's something that Jules has wanted to do for a really long time. He patented this, token side rendering idea back in 2009. So we've really been working towards this for almost the last 7 years, and now we're in a position where blockchain is a sustainable process. You can build tokens on Ethereum, and it becomes much more, efficient to actually do this.
Got it. So tell us a little bit more. Like when you're going from sort of a proprietary rendering architecture to a peer-to-peer kind of rendering architecture, what are like the main considerations there? Is it that you basically want to scale the network's ability to render, but you find that that's difficult to do on some of these cloud services, and so you want to bring that cost down? Or is there like, what are the considerations?
Yeah, so Jules actually built the current AWS GPU sort of instance schematic that they still use. That was back in 2013. And the problem is let's say like a big studio or even a mid-sized studio or a content creator that has a really, really detailed render wants to do something. We have an existing centralized platform called Octane Render Cloud, or ORC for short, and they could come up to us and they could do that. The only problem is our facilitation is limited to our small data center that we have, and then also any instance that we can get in AWS. The problem is it's not only like one job that's being given to us at a specific time. It could be tens, could be hundreds, could be thousands of jobs. There simply aren't enough instances of GPUs out there that we can use. And then, me, I've been in blockchain for a really long time. I know exactly how many GPUs are out there mining, random coins, and they're doing proof of work, and that cycle is not being used for anything. It's an algorithm that basically confirms blocks, and for us, rendering is actually using the GPU power that's out there to actually create real physical work, and that's an efficient process. So that's kind of where our heads are at with this whole thing.
Got it. And so can you give us an idea of is GPU rendering, is it expensive? Like what does a typical like movie or something take when you want to render something like that?
I mean, it varies. And it's a question that we get a lot. Something could be as simple as costing, say, $100 for like a simple on a table, something like that. Our most expensive render job that we did was a static render, so not something that you can move around and not something that moves. And it was a Japanese garden, beautiful. Everything was physically correct, and that was about 150 grand. For these big movie houses, I don't have exact numbers, but millions of dollars. And especially if it's CPU rendering, like think of the amount of time, effort, and energy it costs and takes to render these things. Which is why, GPU rendering is so efficient these days, because the time efficiency and the fact that the work is spread out amongst thousands of cores as opposed to, 2 to 4 to 8 cores on the CPU. So it's a big cost saving. I mean, we're doing this more for efficiency, and the cost will eventually go down, but also the power of these GPUs and this rendering will go up. So it's a constant sort of fluctuation between efficiency, effort, and cost.
Got it. And in terms of sort of the market of customers that tend to use the service, are we talking, mostly people in the arts, rendering 3D movies and scenes? Does the GPU, the GPU capability of, the GPU computation capability seems to be applicable to other areas. Do you guys, what kind of markets do you guys service?
Absolutely. I mean, anything. And when I say anything, it really is anything. We like to talk about entertainment because it's something that people can relate to. Like, we always like to talk about, we did the opening of Westworld, and
nice.
Just recently, JJ to our board, he's been a long time friend of Jules's, and he does a lot of rendering, as you can imagine. But I mean, the possibilities are endless. Like, rendering is so much more than just arts. In the medical field, for example, you render, let's say, organs for transplant, people's bodies to find out, where, let's say they need a knee replacement, you can render that. In real estate, architecture, you have to render the buildings, you have to get these 3D models in. The thing I'm most excited about with that is, you have ARKit, for example, and you could put up your phone and you could actually see the room through the phone as if it was remodeled. And that's going to save you so much time in visualization, because now when you want to remodel your kitchen, for example, you get like a 3D model and you can walk around it, but not in real life. Here you can actually walk around your real kitchen and see what the kitchen is going to look like through your phone. So, the possibilities are endless. Anything that can be tangibly created is rendering. Rendering is basically bringing the real world in a virtual way.
Got it. Yeah, that's awesome. I've definitely had occasion to check out some of the early apps on ARKit, and I think those are going to be absolutely huge. In about a year from now, everybody's going to be walking around just kind of like looking through their phones at everything. Very good. So let's talk a little bit about the decentralized network. How does it work?
So the centralized network, did you say decentralized or
Decentralized.
Yeah. So basically, it's very simple. In theory, obviously, a lot of things have to be developed, but the idea is that, right now, let's say you want to mine, and there's kind of two sort of buckets that people fall in. One is the very, very big GPU data center that does crazy mining, like we're talking about the Genesis, we're talking about any of these other big ones in South Africa, Iceland, Russia, etc. They connect to a node on the Ethereum network and they just mine. And all of that is decentralized, and it's made in a way that allows them to basically use their GPU power to fulfill a specific task. What we would do is we would actually modify, let's say, like the Claymore mining software, for example, and we would actually use a specific, program that taps into the GPUs, but instead of doing proof of work or an algorithm, they're actually doing our own GPUs and rendering and using their cycles for that. The best part about this is we already have built this. We've fully done a proof of concept. The only difference with that is we use Amazon's GPUs or our GPUs instead of other people's GPUs. Obviously, there needs to be some links that need to be developed in terms of, bringing on anybody's GPUs. There's security aspects that need to be taken care of, but that's how it works. For the smaller miners, this other bucket, it's going to be as easy as opening up your user interface and clicking use my GPUs, and then you start generating rendered tokens. We want to make it that easy. No programs, nothing. It's just going to be very simple.
Got it. So, in familiar fashion, the user will bring up a node, they're going to have GPU hardware in their machine. The node will join this network. That network will enable that node to sort of, I guess, process some of the data coming in as a request. That node is able to take a piece of that data and render it and send it back. Does the data get chopped up in certain ways, or do you give like kind of one job to one node depending on what the hardware is?
Data will be chopped up. And the reason is, I mean, one, it's a security thing, right? And there's still a lot of security sort of attack vectors that we need to keep in mind of, because in rendering, I mean, people get cheated all the time, and we want to avoid that. Also, there's security with people's work, right? We never want to have anybody's work be fully completed on someone else's node and have the person who's running the node be able to put that work back together. So we're avoiding that. We are chopping everything up. We're going to do it on a frame-by-frame basis, most likely. And you know, the thing about our project is we want to basically document everything that happens. And we could do like a weekly Medium post and let everybody know how we're doing, because I think for me, the biggest hindrance with these projects is there's not a lot of transparency with the actual development. So we want to be as clear as possible on what we do.
Got it. And so security and the ability of the nodes to you know, ascertain the data, that seems like kind of a big deal. So how do you ensure that, you know, if someone says I'm going to render, you know, this frame at a certain resolution or using a certain amount of computational power, is there a way that you can verify, you could provide a proof that that's actually what has occurred?
Yeah, it is. You know, and it's something that we've already developed with work, decentralized servers. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our learnings from work and we're going to put it into something called proof of render, which we explain a little bit in the white paper, but we can do further explanation. You know, there are many ways that we can kind of protect our users from being chipped off. One of them, obviously, is, you know, providing a constant sort of lens into what they're doing and have them be able to pull previews to see if it's actually what it is being rendered and actually at the rate at which they want to render it. You know, the problem with that is, you know, you also have to have a check step, because people could purposefully send you a preview that's rendered in an amazing way and then send you junk for the rest of that. We have very specific watermarks that are built into each of our renders, and only we can see them. It's not like a classic watermark where it's like a sheet of paper and you can easily see draft. It's very pixel specific and race specific watermarks that we're going to be building in. And we're also working on sort of tying everything together and, in a way, cutting the data and randomizing it so that it's very difficult for someone else to put it back together. So there are a lot of ways that we're going to go about alleviating security risks. And, you know, as we sort of launch into alpha and beta testing and development, that's really going to iron everything out. So we're excited.
Very cool. So let's talk a little bit about the render token, which is the name of your website. What is the role that that this token plays, and let's talk about the network upon which that token is implemented and how that network interacts with your network.
Sure. So render token is basically the unit of utility that we can derive using the network. It's mapped to a specific unit of work, which is 256 octane bench for 256 seconds. And what that is it basically says this token will do this amount of work in this amount of time. And different GPUs have a different octane bench score. Different GPUs will obviously be able to do a different amount of render per each cycle. And, you know, the beauty of having it in a tokenized form is that, you know, one, I mean, it's pretty traditional. You get paid render tokens as soon as you process something. You can exchange render tokens for ETH, stuff like that. But the render token and the blockchain specifically is going to keep track, like I said earlier, of everything that happens on the network. So everything is tied back to that specific person. So the beauty of this is, for example, let's say you're a big Star Wars fan, and somebody, Disney, for example, decides to render the actual Death Star used in the movie on the render network someday. And you can then, if they decide to make it, you know, accessible, go to the marketplace that we're going to be building on top of this and say, hey, I want to have the actual Death Star streamed into my virtual world, my augmented reality world, or whatever. Or like you could put up your phone and it could be in your room, stuff like that. You can actually verify using the blockchain, using the hash that's tied to that specific visual asset, that's like the real one that was in the movie. And for us, it's really cool because, I mean, there's a lot of counterfeit renders out there and fake renders out there. And if you can actually have the thing from not only Disney, but like, say like a Corvette, for example, or like a desk that you like, you know, you can actually have that in your home built by the people who actually designed it. So that's the function of the render token. And it's going to be really cool when people start to actually build on top of just this basic distributed GPU technology.
So in other words, if I am a rendering node on the network, the render token is kind of a compensation for me doing this rendering work. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So why would people or participants in the market buy a render token, right? So it's clear why they would sell it and where the supply is coming from. It's like these rendering nodes are earning it. Is there a set of people that would be likely to buy it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously the main ones are the content creators, the people who are going to be rendering. But also, you know, you can make an argument that people who own the render token also believe in this vast ecosystem that we're going to be entering in with this AR, this VR, this mixed reality revolution. And the only way to kind of access the fuel of you know, this distributed GPU network, and we're trying to be the powerhouse for all these creations. We're trying to make it so easy for people who are developing a game to not have to wait 2 days for their assets to render. They can just have it done in like 5 minutes using the render token. And the way to buy into that sort of fuel is by owning some of the render token, because that's the only currency that's going to be available for this digital asset marketplace. And you know, if you want to build a game with sprites that are only available in a specific format, you have to go through a network, you have to go through a platform. And we have existing partnerships in the space. You know, we have proof of concepts already built out. We're actually going to be rolling this out fairly quickly. I mean, you know, we're shooting for Q1 2018, but alpha testing can be, you know, as soon as we kind of get this thing off the ground. And you know, by buying into the render network, you actually expand upon the value that this you know, this new augmented reality revolution is going to bring, not only on mobile but on desktop everywhere. So that's kind of our vision with the whole thing. We want to be the platform that people use whenever they want to do something in this world.
Got it. And so a bit of a devil's advocate question here, and of course, I'm, you know, personally, I'm highly aligned with various forms of token models, but you know, in sort of the economics that you've described, you know, why do you need a kind of dedicated token rather than maybe even using something like Ether or Bitcoin to be able to compensate the network?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, the reason why we have our own token is because, you know, we can actually customize what the token does, how it's used, how it kind of connects to a lot of these platforms. And, you know, the reason why we actually want to do that is because we have full control over cross functionality and cross platform functionality. So, you know, eventually in phase 4, once we get the distributed rendering off the ground, which is just, you know, that's kind of our bread and butter, but it's also just the base of what we want to do. We're going to start building integrations with other coins in space. So basic attention token, for example, and an extra great friend of ours who's been advising us for quite a while. And there's so many concepts that you can build upon using, you know, light and ray tracing and actual attention. Imagine where you can be in an augmented reality world or like a virtual reality world, and you look at something, and you know, right now if an ad goes on TV, you look at the phone, you want to look at the ad. With our rendering platform and his attention platform, you can look behind the two and say, oh, that person looked at the ad for 28 seconds out of 30 seconds. They get compensated this many bat or this many render for that. If we were to build something like this on their any other token, we would have a tough time without direct approval of the developers to actually build something. So that's kind of our thinking around it, and who knows how we'll scale in the future, and you know, we may even branch out and build our own blockchain. So it gives us a lot more freedom, basically.
Nice, very good. Are you like, what kind of, you know, given that you have a product that is already, being used. You guys are presumably generating revenue, and presumably already doing a bunch of work kind of in your proprietary network. You now want to transfer that work to this decentralized network. Can you give us an idea of how many transactions are likely to occur in this network?
That's tough. I mean, based on where we're going, and these are rough projections, and anybody watching probably shouldn't take these for granted, but it's going to be a lot. I mean, every time there's a render job transferred, that's one transaction. You send it back, that's another transaction. For us in our platform, we're actually going to be building it in so that we cover the transaction fee. So no need to have gas. We'll take care of that for you. But I wouldn't be surprised to see tens of thousands of transactions a day in 12 months. It's something that's very possible, and especially if we make the process of rendering easy and we show people actually how simple it is to create your own digital assets. I mean, like I said, and I'm beating a dead horse here, but the world is moving towards these 3D digital assets at a super rapid pace, to the point where, like, in 2 years, we're all going to be wearing these weird goggles, and they're going to be showing us things with shadows and new worlds that we could have never imagined, which is scary for me, because like that's what it is. But I would not be surprised if the scale was that big. It's a big market, and it's only growing.
So given that I haven't looked at the latest numbers, but a few weeks back, I think Ethereum hit kind of a 500,000 transactions per day milestone. You're talking about tens of thousands, or let's say 10,000 transactions. Talking about maybe about 2% of the transactions on Ethereum or so, maybe more. How are you guys thinking about scalability? Is this something that could potentially be a bottleneck in your vision of the system?
That's a great question. We're banking on the fact that Ethereum is going to scale, and it's going to scale very well. 500,000 transactions today could very easily be, in the millions, tens of millions in the future. Once proof of stake comes about, you get two things, right? You get, ideally, scalability and quicker transactions, but you also get a lot of people with GPUs who now can't mine Ethereum anymore. So they can either turn to other coins, or they could turn to actually, giving a specific percentage of their GPU uptime to render. So in a perfect storm scenario, Ethereum's processing, let's say, 10 million transactions a day. They've somehow figured out a way to scale, and they process as many transactions as Visa or MasterCard or PayPal. And there's a bunch of GPUs who can't mine it anymore. Then they come to us for scalability, transactions flow, they work, and all of that GPU power that was used for an arbitrary hash function is now used for real work. That's kind of the world that we're envisioning. Of course, many things can go wrong, and we're prepared for that. But ideally, that's what's going to be best for not only Render Ethereum, but the entire blockchain space.
Very good. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the way you guys are thinking about the distribution of your token. Is it sort of is it a fully kind of decentralized supply, and how does it get out into the hands of the community?
Yeah, great question. We're doing a very unorthodox approach in terms of what we do. We're not doing a pre-sale. We don't have seed investors. We don't have discounts. We're letting everybody and anybody purchase the token, because we believe in true decentralization. I think the model currently is interesting, and I really don't blame token creators for having pre-sales or discounts. I understand the necessity for it, but for us, we are much more than that. We're not raising money. We're a well-capitalized company. We are raising money, however, for this network and to build it out. And for us, we're starting our token sale tomorrow. Pre-registration closed, but registration is going to open again on October 8th if you want to get in. But basically what we're doing is we are providing 25% of the supply to everybody out there. We're saving 65% of the supply in something called the Render User Development Fund. We'll go into in a little bit. And 10% of the supply for founders, team members, advisors, third-party contractors, etc. The reason why we're taking one, such a small percentage, and two, why we're putting 65% of it in this arbitrary fund there's a few reasons. So if you're Disney and you want to get a lot of render tokens and you want to get a lot of rendering power, you're not going to make a Bittrex account or Poloniex account or wherever, an Ether Delta account, God forbid, and go, you know, get 5 or 6 million tokens. That's going to be a mess for everybody involved. The Render User Development Fund is a very secure smart contract and multi-sig wallet combination that allows these companies to actually buy tokens directly from the smart contract. And it's not like willy-nilly where, you know, you could just go in there and buy, because I can imagine a bunch of people are probably going to access those 65% and start manipulating the market. So we do a very extensive KYC on everybody purchasing tokens through the Render User Development Fund, where Disney, my favorite example, emails us and says, hey, we want to render this much. There's so many tokens we want to buy. Can you do it? We say yes. We make sure that they are who they are. We make sure that we whitelist their Ethereum address for that specific amount. And they could go into the Render User Development Fund and actually purchase the tokens and use them to render. Now, there is going to be a significant amount of Ether in the smart contract. That Ether is going to get distributed to people processing this job. Because one, it's a super high intensity job. Lots of GPUs are needed. They're getting render, but they're also getting Ether in addition to the render that they get, because it is an important job. So we never keep the Ether. We aren't really in custody of the 65%. We're just gatekeepers, and that's going to allow the most efficiency in the market.
So sorry, just to make sure that I understand. So the 65% is meant to kind of incentivize partners around the ecosystem. Is that correct?
Not so much partners, but more like big studios and even mid-sized studios to sort of get render in a way that makes a lot of sense. You know, if you're one user, you want to get 1,000 render, you can go to the markets and get that. That's no problem. But once you start moving the needle, once you hit like 5% of volume, you really start getting into, you know, some very interesting bid and ask spreads. We've just created this in order to make people have a much easier way of accessing the render network. And we have, you know, safeguards built in to kind of make sure that the supply isn't tarnished by this big inflow of render coming into the market. And we're going to be making all these smart contracts public. Everything's going to be auditable, and we want people to know exactly what we're doing with this stuff.
Got it. And for the portion of the, I guess the 25% of the supply that's going to go out to, I guess like the general retail investors, how does that work? Is it going to be, you know, you mentioned registration. A lot of folks have been doing registration. I mean, partially for regulatory compliance reasons, but another reason is that once you establish KYC, it's actually easier to sort of limit participation, and that creates sort of an equal opportunity for anybody who wants to register and get a fair shot at the supply, whereas sort of many sales before and last year, you know, it was kind of a race and frenzy and competition to get in as soon as possible. Is that sort of the reasoning for KYC here?
That is the reasoning. I mean, like, you know, it's nice when it's free for all, but frankly, I'm not looking to pay tens of thousands of dollars in gas just to get in, or probably not get in. So that is the reason for it. We wanted to make it as accessible as possible, and our KYC isn't anything scary. We're not collecting passport pages or social security numbers. It's just very simple. It's first name, last name, date of birth, email, excuse me, Ethereum address, and, you know, we check you, and as long as you're not a terrorist or a criminal, you're free to go. And we think that's just the easiest way for people to get in. So we did have pre-registration. It closed, and that's for the people who wanted to get in early. And on Sunday, on the 8th, we're going to open up registration again, rolling basis, submit your info, get everything down, and participate. Is
there a difference, you know, for people who had got in on Sunday and for people who are going to get on the 8th?
No difference. Just people who got in earlier are going to have that period from the 5th to the 8th to participate first.
Gotcha.
But no difference, no discounts, nothing like that.
And across all of the registrants, is the way that it works is that you kind of divide the supply equally among them and then set that as sort of their cap?
So we don't have a cap. We don't have a min cap or a max cap. We are releasing quite a bit amount of tokens in the ecosystem. So we do think that that provides a level playing field. The people who registered early are going to be able to get in early, but I don't foresee there being an issue for, people registering on the 8th and being able to get in.
Fantastic. Is there are there any metrics you're willing to share at this point about kind of number of registrants? Like how wide do you expect these tokens to be distributed?
I think they'll do very well. I can't give out specific numbers. We'll release them. We'll release them eventually.
Okay.
But at the moment, I'm really excited to see what happens because it's been really good. The community's been really great, and we're trying to be the gold standard in these token sales, which is tough because everybody is obviously, trying to support the ecosystem, and we're just trying to figure out the best way to kind of bring this platform to everybody.
And final question on the sale aspects: are you first of all, are you guys a US based company?
We are, yes.
And are you doing this sale as a US based company, or are you kind of incorporated in a different entity offshore?
Yeah, so we're incorporated offshore, but we are running this in a way that allows U.S. citizens to participate. Unless you live in New York State, sorry guys, your regulators are interesting. But we want to open this up to everybody, so people in the U.S. can participate, people all around the world can participate, unless token sales are banned in your jurisdiction. Everything's in our token terms of sale. But yeah, that's how we run it.
All right, fantastic. So that sounds great. I have one last question, and I'll kind of shoot it back over to you for, maybe if you have some final thoughts.
Yeah.
For anybody who's watching, check out rendertoken.com for more information. There's a white paper. As Colin said, registration will, again, reopen on the 8th. So in terms of the blockchain landscape, I know there's a number of projects that are also doing various forms of decentralized computation and even decentralized rendering. How would you kind of characterize your project? What are the advantages and disadvantages over some of the other token opportunities in this particular space?
Of course. I mean, that's like one of the first questions we ever got, and everybody always points out Golem. And Golem is great. I'm deeply into them. I participated in their IPO ages ago. Like back in 2015, right? And or early 2016. But they're great. They're great people. We've spoken to Julian, and their proof of concept for Brass, as you know, is render. The only thing is I think they have an amazing use case for everything else that they do, but rendering, specifically where the space is going, is very difficult. And unless you have, a competency and an advantage outside of the blockchain space in rendering, it's very hard to actually integrate things in a way that makes sense. They're doing CPU rendering. I tried their alpha. They use Blender, which accounts for about 4% of the market. But like I said, CPU rendering is an old way of doing things. I think once they get past this proof of concept, they'll sort of let go of rendering and go into some of the cool stuff that they're doing. I don't foresee us competing with them, or rather at all. I mean, there are many ways that we can partnership and work together. In terms of distributed computing, building out the distributed computing is one thing. Building that out and having the connections, partnerships, and sort of ecosystem to support growth is a different thing. I think we're well positioned to do the latter, and I'm just really excited to get this off the ground. Like, token sales are fun, but actually building this thing out and being able to give the people, a beta test and bring people on board and get feedback and tweak the system is what I'm really here for. That's it.
Fantastic. Just one more question. So, Colin, you mentioned you've been in blockchain for a while. This is a more general question. What do you think about kind of the markets in general right now? What's really interesting to you, and what do you think about the ICO space and how it will unfold?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of things have happened, as you know, in the past 12 months. We went from ICOs being kind of like a rare thing to now having like 5 or 6 a day, and they're just random. Some of them. I'm excited because, and I read an article a while ago by Union Square Ventures. I forgot what its name was, but it was very interesting. He basically talked about speculation and innovation. And I'm pretty sure it's like a famous article. I'm blanking on the name, but without this speculation, there's not going to be the drive for new companies to sort of find new innovation space. And I think there's some amazing, amazing ICOs out there. And I think there's some cringeworthy ICOs out there that haven't really done their diligence. And I'm not going to say any names, but they exist. The thing I'm most excited about is people are talking about blockchain. Like on any given day, I could go on Bloomberg, Forbes, Fortune, CNBC, Wall Street Journal. It's always blockchain. You got the big banks talking about it. You got Jamie Dimon speaking about Bitcoin, and that's exciting for me. I want to see Bitcoin become mainstream, and I want to see it become mainstream in a way that makes sense. And decentralization is going to be the future. Firm believer in that. Markets very difficult. I could say that they're going to crash, then they could talk 200%. I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, speculation drives innovation. So who knows? I just know long term, this is here. It's here to last, and I'm very bullish on everything going on.
Fantastic. Well, Cullen, thank you very much. Again, check out rendertoken.com and the RNDR project from Otoy. Very excited to follow your progress. Was lucky enough to register in time before, like in the first period here. And again, look forward to following your progress.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jake. We love CoinFund, and so if you guys have any questions, we're always up on Rocket Chat. I'm there. Jules is there. Twitter's great. Reddit's great. Yeah, just hit us up. And thank you once again. This was great.
All right. Fantastic. And thank you. Take care.
Take care. See you guys.
Bye-bye.